Today we've got a hilarious freak-up story about someone who intended to text their girlfriend, but instead texted their mom. We'll get into that one in just a bit, but first, today I freaked up by rolling my garden hose. My 43-year-old male mother-in-law lives with us and wanted to wash her car this morning. No problem, right? So she disconnects our hose from the backyard and drags it to the front of the house where her car is parked. When finished, drags it back to the back patio and hooks it back up to the spigot again. She told me immediately afterwards that she must have gotten tangled up in a cactus or something because she felt a bunch of needles in her hands and clothes. We live in Arizona. I thought it a bit weird at first because we don't have any cactus in our yard, but kept it moving. Next time I walked in the back, I discovered the hose just all over the ground in a tangled mess. While in the process of rolling said hose into a neat coil, I immediately felt sharp, stabbing pains in both hands. As it turns out, her dragging the hose through the rocks from the backyard to the front ripped some of the rubber coating and exposed the fiberglass underneath, which explains what she thought was cactus needles sticking her. That was around 8 a.m. this morning. It's now 7 p.m., and I still feel a couple small pinches on different parts of my hand where a fiberglass shard is hanging out. Living its best life. Yeah, I don't know how much garden hoses cost in Arizona, but it's probably worth it. Instead of trying to patch it up and fix it, just get a whole new hose. That's absolutely crazy. GMRZW4 replied, gently lay duct tape or packing tape, sticky side down, over the area where the fiberglass is. You want it to be fully against your skin, but you don't want enough pressure that you're pushing the splinters deeper. Wait a few seconds, then pull it off. I usually repeat with a couple of pieces of tape, just in case. Also, hello everybody, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these Today I Freaked Up videos, it would be amazing if you liked the video or commented down below if you're listening to our podcast. Now then, our next story is, today I freaked up by not checking if the bathroom door actually locked. This happened a few weeks ago, but my soul still leaves my body when I think about it. I was at a friend's house for a get-together. Not a huge party, just 7 to 8 people. Snacks, dumb games, and good vibes. After a while, my stomach got triggered by some spicy snack and nature called. I asked for the bathroom, went in, and thought I locked the door. Turns out I didn't. I closed it, yes, but I didn't twist the little lock thingy properly because I was too distracted trying to be fast and polite. So there I am, peacefully doing my business, when suddenly the door swings open and my friend's cousin, who I'd literally just met an hour ago, walks in. We locked eyes. I was seated and pants down. Pure silence. No one moved. Just deep spiritual shame. She screamed. I screamed sorry, and still don't know why, and I somehow kicked the door shut and then just sat there contemplating existence. When I came out, everyone knew. Everyone. Someone even offered me a bottle of water and said, "You okay, bro?" Like I had just come back from war. I stayed another 10 minutes for dignity's sake, then faked a phone call and left. Lesson learned. Always double check the dang lock. Twist, tug, test. Don't trust your memory. Your dignity isn't auto-saved, buddy. Save it manually. Yeah, so I worked at an establishment one time that had one bathroom and the lock didn't work, and so it was just Russian roulette. You really had to go, obviously you could knock and say, is anyone in there? For whatever reason, people like to go to the bathroom with headphones on and stuff like that, and so you would knock, holler out, and you wouldn't get an answer. You'd open the door and there'd be someone in there just dumping butt all over the place. So yeah, I get it. Rex Cars responded, door closed, knock to see if the room is occupied. She should be the one feeling embarrassed. You did nothing wrong other than not lock the door. Our next story is, today I freaked up by pricing a concert ticket. So I live in Canada and I love Neil Young. My son, male, 21 years old, is also learning to appreciate Neil Young. He likes some songs and knows that Neil is a part of Canadian culture and also the 60s and 70s protest songs. So Neil is playing a show on my birthday this year. My son is attending a year-round specialty college program and works 5 to 15 hours a week. He offered to get us tickets to Neil Young for my birthday. This is a large expenditure, and I've already said yes, that's fine for a birthday and Christmas. He then told me that with exchange, it was nearly $600. With exchange? I was puzzled. We're seeing a concert in Canada. Why was he charged American funds? He showed me how he bought the tickets through an American vendor. I showed him Ticketmaster, and the tickets were $120 each, Canadian, plus tax and Ticketmaster avarice fees. Now he said, "What was the point of that? To make me feel crappy about your birthday?" Then stood up and took his lunch into his room. I feel like crap. Yeah, not much else to add to that one. He got ripped off. Hopefully, lesson learned. Chippy Joy commented, "People get ripped off like this all the time. Not really your fault, sort of your son's fault / newbie mistake. Have seen similar things happen to my parents, etc. You gotta go directly to the source. That's a good life lesson, I suppose. That said, it's not really a big deal anyway. Lesson learned. Just accept the gift now and no complaining or pointing it out going forward. Maybe you could even get him something extra for his birthday / Christmas since he overspent, though totally not necessary. I could see myself doing that if a loved one accidentally spent too much on me." Our next story is, "Today I freaked up by going away last minute on a girl." So, 5 days ago, matched with this girl on a dating app, immediately connected and started talking and texting. She seemed really nice and understanding. Then I started to see some things. I saw her take screenshots, which she said were accidental. Okay, understandable. Then later on, I had a talk with her to have our first date. She only agreed for me to go to her city, which is 50 kilometers away from where I live, and I don't know the city well. I still agreed to go. On the road, she texted, mentioned something about inviting me to her apartment, which seemed weird because we never met. So I text my bro and red flags start to go up. Finally arrive at the destination. She video called me, but she was not on video. I asked her to use camera so I feel safe, and she said, "You'll see me enough," and guided me to some shady streets. I told her if we don't meet in a public space, I'm leaving, and she said, "I can't there because people will know me." And so I did, but I feel terrible and as if I ruined something that could have been good. At the moment, I felt as if I was either being set up. My friend, this is not a freak up. This is littered with red flags and sketchy behavior on her part. You absolutely did the right thing by coming to your senses and leaving. Honestly, you shouldn't have gone 50 kilometers out to her place initially without knowing more about her, but ultimately, you dodged a bullet, not a freak up. Sergs commented, "How is this a freak up? You have both kidneys now due to playing it safe. Getting your Richard wet isn't worth being a victim of organ trafficking or worse. Driving 50 kilometers, shady streets, meeting at her apartment? Yeah, no. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably isn't. Just too much weird stuff going on all at once. Not a freak up." Our next story is, "Today I freaked up by almost cutting a major artery while loading the dishwasher. First mistake. Putting one of my sharpest knives in the dishwasher, with the sharp point facing upward because the upper bracket was full. I was bending over to put down, or adjust, a small plate at the back, over the cutlery holder. When I drove the underside of my wrist onto the knife, I started bleeding like a faucet. On the dishwasher, the sink, along the countertop, and onto the floor. All of this happened from just moving about 2 meters from one side of the kitchen to the other. Within maybe 5 seconds, I had some paper towels on the wound, and it stopped bleeding after around 10 seconds, fully sealed. Then I just cleaned up like nothing happened. But I learned a valuable lesson. Never put your sharp knives pointing upward in the dishwasher. P.S. I didn't cut the main artery, at least I don't think so, but it was just one of those big visible ones on the wrist. The puncture was about 7 to 8 millimeters deep. Yeah, this is quite the freak up. Ultimately, glad OP that you're okay, and by sharing this story, hopefully raising awareness for anyone else that might be careless and puncture a major artery. We don't want that happening. Reddit5 commented, "As someone who appreciates a good knife, put your normal cutlery in a dishwasher, sure, but never put anything decent in there. Hand wash it. Not only is it safer, there's no chance of movement and dulling of the blade." Our next story is, "Today I freaked up by even getting out of bed." More accurately, this happened on Friday. Planned to wake up super early to get groceries. Total fail. Hungover, and then got stuck in lunchtime crowd. Finally got home, popped the trunk, started unloading the car. Cold/frozen stuff first. Grabbed a few bags. Noticed milk was leaking all over the trunk. Dropped car key fob into one of the bags. Put bags down in the trunk. Grabbed the milk, picked up the bag I thought my fob was in, and closed the trunk. Just as it closed, saw a bag of canned stuff fall over. That's when I heard the thunk of car doors locking. I figured the key fob was in one of the other bags. No worries, I have a spare key. Need to get this milk taken care of first. Pour milk in a jug, drop bag of frozen in freezer, go to get the other key. No key. Blaming others for the missing key caused a separate "today I freaked up" issue all by itself. Start calling locksmiths to urgently unlock the car. It's over 98 degrees Fahrenheit here. Soonest time is 2 hours, with a $250 call-out fee. They arrive after 5 hours, open the car, which does not smell good, and still no key fob. What? Pay key guys, trash all the cold and frozen stuff, put away dry and canned stuff, still no keys. By now, it's well past 8 p.m. I'm several beers in, starving hungry, with no desire or energy to cook. Bag of frozen stuff I did bring in had 3 frozen pizzas in it, so I figured just have one of them. Preheated the oven, went to get one of the pizzas, and right there, sandwiched between 2 pizzas, my bleeping key fob. I know it's my fault because I woke up late and hungover, but man, if I'd have just stayed in bed. It's a freak up, just a massive waste of time and money in a vacuum. You can do better, my friend, come on. Versertorix commented, because I wasn't sleeping enough over the course of months, when my wife came home from the store, I took out the trash, unloaded groceries, and brought them upstairs. Next morning, my wife calls from our driveway. Why did you put a bag of trash in my trunk? It smells like hot garbage in here. We were also having a heat wave, so she couldn't drive without her windows down to escape the smell without having to deal with the heat. I have no actual memory of putting the trash down in the trunk, or why that didn't occur to me as a bad idea, or why I didn't just keep going. Put it in the other trash can like I meant to. Moral of the story, don't short yourself on sleep long term. Our next story is, today I freaked up by using old sunscreen when I went kayaking. So, this weekend, I went kayaking with a group of guys from work. I prepared as best I could, brought plenty of water, put on sunscreen and bug spray, and bought a plastic bag to keep my phone dry. The whole trip, I didn't think anything was wrong. Pale as a ghost the whole way. I burned pretty easy, but after I got out of the river and headed home, I realized my legs were a little red. I went straight home, but over the rest of the day, my legs got so sunburnt I could barely walk. Today, I could barely hobble around the kitchen to make food, let alone stand in one place for more than a minute without losing my balance. I literally had to hold on to walls to keep from collapsing. I was expecting a little sunburn, and wouldn't have cared, because it was a 3-hour trip and I didn't reapply at all. But this is the worst sunburn I've had in 20 years. I checked the sunscreen I put on, and it expired in 2021, so it basically did nothing. The crazy part is, I didn't really get burned at all on my face, neck, or arms. My legs and feet got the brunt of it. So now I've got to hobble to the office in the morning with some ibuprofen and gritted teeth because I didn't check the expiration date. I feel your pain there, Odie, for sure. There have definitely been times when you don't even realize how long you've been outside in the sun without sunscreen or without reapplying. And once you kind of cross that event horizon, it's just too late. There's nothing you can do. And you have to bear through the pain till you get better. It sucks. I definitely feel you on that. Leia22 replied, so SPF works like this. SPF 30 means you can now be out in the sun 30 times longer before getting burned compared to no sunscreen. So if you're pale AF and it's midday summer, you might only be able to last 2 minutes in the sun before getting burnt normally without sunscreen. So if you put on an SPF 30, that only gives you 60 minutes of coverage before burning. SPF 50 could have given you 50 times coverage of your normal 2 minutes of exposure, meaning you now have 100 minutes of coverage, which is still not enough for what you did. These are estimates just to give you perspective if you used it correctly. Now, there's a point where your body's natural oils will break down the cream and dissolve it away, so that's why they tell you to reapply sunscreen like every 2 hours. And your legs got the worst of it because they were the most perpendicular to the sun's rays, so they got the most direct hit. Our next story is, today I freaked up by not noticing I was logged into my boyfriend's Trainline account. Obligatory not today, but this is a story I wanted to share from a while back. Some background. I am, now, 26-year-old female from the UK. We have apps over here that you can buy your train tickets on, Trainline being one of them. It will then provide you with a QR code that you can scan to get through the barriers at the train stations. We have something called rail cards. You can pay about £40 to purchase one of these, which you can then use to get up to 1/3 off your train ticket cost. I don't drive, so I have to rely on public transport to get around. I needed to visit the supermarket on this particular day, so I opened up Trainline, bought my ticket, then headed off to the station to start my journey. I get to the train with no issues. It was a short journey, so I didn't see any ticket guards while on board, and therefore didn't get my ticket checked. I hop off the train and make my way towards the barriers. This particular station is quite large for the area I live in. It only has 5 platforms, but it's one of those stations where all the connecting trains stop, so it's often very busy. As I'm making my way towards the train barriers, I see a few ticket guards standing by them dressed in high-vis vests. I could tell that something was going on, as there were usually only one, max 2, hanging around. I get closer and start to walk toward the barrier, only to be stopped by one of the guards in high vis. She gives me a quick explanation that she's from National Rail, and today they're checking everyone's tickets to make sure everyone is traveling with the correct ticket. Not a problem. I have my app loaded up already, so I unlock my phone for her to scan my QR code. She scans it and asks me a question I wasn't prepared for. Can I see your rail card? This question throws me a little. At this point in time, I don't, nor have I ever, owned a rail card. I relay this back to the guard and she says, right, puts her scanner away and gets out her notebook. I'm still confused about what's going on, and I must have had a puzzled look on my face as the woman says, you bought a rail card ticket? This is when I look down at my phone and realize that, why yes, in fact, I've purchased a rail card ticket. Still confused about how this happened, I went through my app and figured out that I was logged into my boyfriend's account. He has a rail card and he had used my phone to buy a ticket when his phone battery was dead, so the default settings had a rail card selected. I show this mistake to the guard and I offer to purchase a new ticket at full price. She says no, it was my responsibility to check that I was traveling with a valid ticket. She then tells me that I'm going to be fined £100. At this point, I'm getting stressed and upset, and I explain that it was an accident and I'm more than happy to pay for a full-price ticket. Keep in mind, the ticket value was less than £5. She stands her ground and starts demanding that I give her my full name and contact details. I'm now crying as I'm in severe credit card debt, and £100 is a lot of money to me. A man on the opposite side of the barriers notices me and offers to buy me a ticket. The guard jumps in and turns him down immediately. She starts telling me that if I refuse to give her my details, she's going to call the police. I start having a panic attack. I have an anxiety disorder, but it's clear that the guard thinks I'm faking. I just keep crying, apologizing, and offering to buy a new ticket. This is about the point that the guard's male colleague, I believe he was her superior, steps in. He sees how upset I am. I explain it was an accident, and he tells her to let me go. She argues back a little, saying that they aren't supposed to do that and she wants to call the police, but eventually agrees to let me go after purchasing a new ticket. I pay for my ticket in silence, go through the barriers, and walk off. I'm so embarrassed at this point as everyone has just heard me crying and seen me having an anxiety attack. Unfortunately, I let it ruin my day, but now I can look back and laugh. Safe to say, I now triple check my train tickets every time before I purchase them. Man, I thought we had it bad with public transport in the United States. You UK people don't mess around. That is hardcore. Yikes. Another user commented, as someone that has traveled on rail in the UK, America, and Europe, the UK rail system has somehow picked up the worst traits of both. Europe, apps everywhere, incredibly efficient service. America, humans everywhere, inefficient, but there's always a human being to fix something broken. UK, only apps that only work with select phones, no humans anywhere to help you unless it's someone to criticize or fine you. Our next story is, today I freaked out by calling a new hire ma'am. This happened to me recently. I, 38-year-old male, was training a new hire, 18-year-old female, and called her ma'am. I then asked how old she was. When she told me her age, I said, "You're too young to be a ma'am." She said nothing of it, and we continued on for the rest of our shift. When I came into work the next shift, my assistant manager pulled me aside and said the employee had come to her in the next shift while I was off and put in her 2 weeks' notice because I had told her, "You're too young for me," after she told me her age. Her and the other assistant manager talked it over and figured I probably didn't. When I told my manager what I actually said, she laughed and told me not to worry about it. Unfortunate misunderstanding, but in the world we live in today, you can't say things like that without people misconstruing it or taking offense, so best to just drop it. Faye Oaks replied, "You can just do away with ma'am altogether. The vast majority of women don't like it. All of those ma'am, miss, and sir honorifics are outdated and are kind of unnecessary in conversation. You don't need to say, 'Hello, ma'am. How are you, ma'am?' 'Yes, ma'am.' You can just say, 'Hello. How are you?' 'Yes.' Especially now that folks use all sorts of different pronouns and gender isn't always obvious. It's only a matter of time before you accidentally insult someone when you're trying to be polite. Our next story is, Today I freaked up by telling my teacher about an episode of my favorite TV show. This freak up did not happen today, but almost 20 years ago. It's just so funny, it can't not be told. Let me paint the scene. The year was 2005. I was the tender age of 9, and in year 3 at school. My poor teacher was this lovely, kind, and very gentle woman who loved having one-on-one chats with all the kids in the class about their hobbies and tastes and home life. Both, no doubt, to get to know us better and to make sure we were all generally okay. She tried to have these one-on-one sessions once a week, and it was generally a 3 to 5 minute chat during class. I was a weird child with a rather morbid taste. Ever since I was 5, my favorite movie was The Mummy. My favorite TV shows? Criminal Minds, Bones, and Survivor. Heck, I'd even watch air crash investigations if it was on. Now, you may be asking what kind of twisted or absentee parents would let their 9-year-old watch these shows. The answer is quite simple. They had no idea I was watching any of this. They would send me to bed and say goodnight, and I would sneak back downstairs and hide in a specific spot in the hallway where they couldn't see me, just so I could watch. It was cramped and uncomfortable, but I was willing to do whatever it took to get my crime show fix. My favorite show of them all in this time happened to be Bones. For those of you who haven't seen Bones, it's a crime show, but the hook of the show is that the bodies are so badly decomposed that they need forensic scientists to solve the case. It's pretty full-on, heavily gory, and by all accounts a fantastic show. I still rewatch it. So when the teacher sits down with me to have a chat on how life is going, little 9-year-old me goes into great detail of the episode I just watched the night before. And when I say great detail, I was explaining the decomposed body with the body scattered in pieces. The birds or dogs or whatever casually chewing on this bloody, mangled mess that was the victim. The maggots crawling over it, the autopsy procedures, and the technique to deflesh bones, and what happened to this poor victim that, quite frankly, no reasonable 9-year-old should understand. My teacher was green, and this look of absolute horror on her face, both at what I'm describing and probably also at the thought of all the angry letters she'd receive from parents if I repeat this to any of the kids in the class. Of course, I understood gore and crime very well, but apparently not social cues, because I did not read the room and thought I had done a good job, but I forgot to mention a small detail. I got home from school that day to find my mom is on the phone with my poor, traumatized, panicked teacher, who is recommending therapy and police intervention and more therapy and some form of medication as my mother's sitting there with this look that can only be described as a mix of horror, embarrassment, frustration, and a glimmer of amusement. As it turns out, despite my great, nauseating detail in the story, I had neglected to mention once that I was describing an episode of a show. My poor, gentle, kind, and deeply traumatized teacher thought I had witnessed this god-awful, horrific crime happen in person, or that I found the body, or something equally horrid. My mom, who had watched the episode the night before, recognized it and hurriedly assured my teacher that it was an episode of a show and not something that happened to me in real life. Before then, hurriedly explaining that I should have been in bed and must have snuck down to watch it. They then interrogated me to figure out how I was watching it, where I was forced to give up my hallway hiding spot, before sending me to bed straight after dinner, with my dad standing guard at the hallway to make sure I couldn't sneak down for my crime fix. Yes, I did try. My poor parents sent me to school the next day with a note for the teacher's principal apologizing for the incident and with an explanation that they're not terrible parents. They just didn't realize I had been hiding in the hallway to watch, and it wouldn't happen again. My parents tried to put a stop to me watching Bones, but my need to get my crime fix eventually wore them down as I kept finding more and more hiding spots and getting caught. So when I reached high school, they finally gave up and let me watch them, as long as I never talked about it in school. I wrote an English report on the show and went into excruciating detail. They just sighed with a level of tone that only a parent can reach when they found out. Well, my friend, if you're truly this addicted, I think you've just found your calling to be the next great forensic scientist, just like Bones. Emotional B2065 replied, I used to watch Criminal Minds when I was 9 too, except my mom was fully aware and watching it with me. It was easily my favorite show and it made me want to be an actor, with the unfortunate side effect of my mom having to explain to strangers why I would proudly declare I want to be the person who dies on TV when I grow up, a death actor. Our next story is, today I freaked up by texting my mom instead of my girlfriend. So my girlfriend and I have been joking around with flirty texts all week. This morning I sent what I thought was a spicy message to her. Won't say what it was, but it definitely wasn't child-friendly. But it literally went to my mom instead, and she replied, "Huh?" And then, "I think you meant someone else." I've never wanted to crawl into a hole faster in my life. I immediately tried calling her to explain, but she didn't pick up, which honestly might have been for the best, because what do you even say? "Sorry, Mom, that explicit text was meant for someone else." Doesn't really make it better. Now I'm sitting here overthinking every family dinner we're going to have for the rest of eternity. Do I pretend it never happened, or do I address it directly? Like, how do you recover from accidentally sexting your mother? My girlfriend thinks it's hilarious, of course. She's been sending me screenshots of similar stories from Reddit, trying to make me feel better, but honestly, it's just making me realize how common this nightmare scenario apparently is. The worst part is, my mom is probably going to bring this up at the most inappropriate time possible, knowing her sense of humor. I can already picture Christmas dinner. "So, honey, how's your texting going?" I'm 24 years old, and I feel like I'm 12 again, getting caught doing something embarrassing. Technology was supposed to make communication easier, not create new ways to traumatize yourself and your family members. Well, at least it was your mom and not like a mutual friend, another girl, or a guy, or something that could absolutely widen and deepen the rabbit hole to a point where you'd never crawl out. Mom will look out for you, no worries. Stormpedal56 replied, "LMAO, RIP, my dude." Honestly, though, everyone has sent the wrong text to someone at some point, and let's face it, if there's going to be a top 10 list for awkward wrong recipients, Mom will always be number one. Don't worry about it too much. We all make mistakes. This is like the ultimate level of messaging mishap. Just be upfront and laugh it off with her. The more you show it bothers you, the more it becomes a teasing material for family members. And hey, on the bright side, when she drops that "how's your texting going" at Christmas, it's going to be a story to tell and lighten up the mood. Cheer up, bro. It's just one of those life's effed up moments you're gonna look back at and laugh at hard. Peace. Our next story is, today I freaked up when my roommate lit a match to air out my gas bomb. I was in my dorm room at my college with a terrible sinus infection. My roommate was a jerk, but in addition, he'd sell weed, which is okay now and then, but not when your sinuses are being overwhelmed by that smell 24/7. I let out a gasser because I was ticked about all the terrible things he had done that I then had to deal with, like kicking me out at 3 a.m. to have hooked up with his girlfriend, not cleaning out a fridge, and then making me clean it up when it got moldy after winter break, or having his mom call the police because she didn't know where it was, and then making me get the door to tell him to get on his phone. So this was my little revenge. I couldn't smell a thing, so this was a little harmless revenge. Well, I let it out, and he did smell it. Aerosol didn't cover the smell. Glade didn't either. So he lit a match. Only the fire alarm in our high-rise dormitory was very sensitive. The alarm went off, and the fire department was called. It was a monthly occurrence, but our RA did tell us this alarm was from our room. So at 1 a.m., everybody had to go downstairs, and hundreds of students in pajamas on a Sunday night. We had to wait until the firefighters could trace it and shut off the alarm. It was the dead of winter. For all I went through, I don't regret it. This just comes with the territory of the environment. What is a college experience in a dormitory without spending at least one midnight or later escapade out in the hallways because some jerkwad set off a fire alarm? I get it. I don't hate it. Our next story is, today I freaked up by trying to help my cat after he got a bag caught around his neck. This happened yesterday, and today I'm dealing with the consequences. Around 5 p.m. yesterday, my, male, 36 years old, cat Leo, male, 9 years old, was starting up his evening zoomies. I'd left a reusable cooler bag on the floor, and he was having a blast crawling into it, then flinging himself out to pounce on different toys or just run out of the room. After doing this a couple times, I watched as the inevitable happened. He managed to put his head through the loop of the carry handle, twisted it so that it was wrapped around his throat, and when he zoomed out of the bag came with him. I was too slow to get off the couch and stop him. Over the next 5 minutes, he rocketed around my cluttered living room, under tables, desks, chairs, behind the computer desk, everywhere. He tried going to every single hiding spot he had, but the bag was coming with him, this loud flapping thing chasing him while something wrapped tightly around his neck. He slammed into walls and knocked stuff over, probably bruising himself and wrenching joints and pulling muscles. My freak up started here as I tried to help him. I sort of passively chased him and eventually managed to herd him into the bedroom where he hid under the bed. Now that he was corralled, I closed the bedroom door so he couldn't run off again, and pulled the mattress back from the wall so I could climb on and reach down through the gap in the slats of the bed frame to unhook the carry handle from his neck. Again, freak up, because I was looming over him and reaching into his ultimate safe dark hidey hole while he was in a full-blown panic. Now that he wasn't moving, the bag wasn't chasing him and scaring him, and by the time I was able to reach down to him, he'd somehow gotten his head out from the loop anyway. As I reached down to the bag, he started growling, hissing, and spitting, before launching into full-fledged howling at ear-piercing volume. I grabbed the bag and got off the bed, and moved everything back in place. Meanwhile, he was still screaming and hissing from below the bed. My house has a concertina sliding door which I can separate the front living area from the bedroom/rest of the house. So I did what I normally do when he's being annoying or hyper. I closed that door and waited for him to chill the freak out. This time was different. He did not chill the freak out. Over the next few hours, every time I went to check, went to take a pee, put food on his bowl, whatever, he immediately got super territorial and literally screamed at me. I knew what was happening because milder versions have happened before. Cats are dumb in a very special way, and one of them is how they transfer aggression. If something upsets a cat but they can't immediately attack the thing, they build an instant grudge and will hold that need to lash out until they find something to transfer their aggression to. In Leo's case, usually me. This is normally fairly benign, something like seeing a bird through the window he can't get to at 8 a.m. while I'm at work, then biting on my ankle and running away when I get home from work at 7 p.m. This was very different. I've only seen him this simultaneously angry and terrified twice, and that was after an old girlfriend overstayed her welcome and managed to spook him, and the other time when I briefly thought getting him a little girlfriend cat would be cute and fun. I figured he was just a misogynist, as he never, in the whole 8 years I've had this single brain-celled organism living with me, gotten like this with me. Eventually, as we were getting closer to bedtime, I left the concertina door open a crack to see if he'd be better off coming to me. That seemed to work. He crept out from the other half of the house eventually, and joined me as I started my bedtime ritual of drinking a hot cocoa and watching crap on YouTube. He sat on my lap on the couch, and I gave him head pats. All seemed well. I went to bed close to midnight, and as normal, he skittered off when I got off the couch. I got into bed and he joined me a bit later, curling up to sleep next to me on the bed. At about 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of him coughing and spluttering, and eventually starting to retch like he was going to vomit. Instinct kicked in, and I followed the standard procedure, grabbed him and tossed him gently onto the tiles in the hallway just outside the bedroom. He didn't end up vomiting. He gave me a bit of a dirty look before dashing away into the front of the house. Since I was awake, I noticed that my prostate was singing the song of its people in a duet with my bladder. So I rolled out of bed and went to spend a few fruitless minutes scrolling Reddit while waiting for my plumbing to decide that it was going to be alright. 10 minutes and about 4 milliliters later, I got up, flushed, and walked out into the hallways. Leo was waiting for me and instantly started the screaming and hissing again, crouched down with his ears right back like he was going to pounce at my legs. I yelled out of instinct and waved my foot in the air over him, as that will usually shoo him away. Not this time. He somehow got even louder, and after a standoff where he'd escalate the screaming if I tried to move towards or past him, I managed to kind of back him into the bedroom doorway and slip past to the kitchen in the front of the house. While I took some melatonin to help me get back to sleep, he followed me into the kitchen and kept up the territorial fury, essentially corralling me in the kitchen. I got him to back off again, this time by pushing an empty Uber Eats bag with some recyclable trash in it towards him with my foot. He retreated to the bedroom and under the bed, but instead of going right back to the corner against the wall, he crouched under the edge closest to the door. If I approached the doorway, he would scream louder and start to lunge out from under the bed. I backed off and closed the concertina again, but I really needed to get back to bed as I needed to be rested and able to get up early the next day. So I tried waiting a little bit again, and after 10 or so minutes, did the trick with leaving the concertina door open a crack. As before, he came to me after a little bit, and we seemed chill again. This was not the case. The second I tried to get up and walk towards the bedroom, he leapt up, blocked my way, and screamed at me, threatening to attack. So now I was stuck, my cat sitting on the center console of my recliner couch at my elbow, starting to growl and hiss as soon as I started standing up. I considered trying to sleep on the couch, but I have sleep apnea and in general just cannot sleep on a recliner. So, desperate now, I went for the nuclear option that I've used before when he's just being a stubborn little prick and won't leave me alone. Calm the freak down. Grab him, tank a few light scratches, and put him in the sin bin to calm the freak down, also known as the laundry room with a spare water bowl and litter tray. I waited until he was settled down in a loaf facing away from me, and I grabbed him. This was my last and biggest freak up. Like I said, he's never been this ticked at me, and even if we've gotten to the point where he tries to bite or scratch me, it's still basically roughhousing. As I grabbed him from behind, right hand under his belly to support him/squish him to my body, while his legs latched onto my arm and the other hand at the scruff of his neck, he went berserk. I managed to control him, but not before he somehow managed to twist around and take a good crack at ripping my face off, catching me on the side of the head instead. I got him to the laundry without seeming to get too badly mauled, but even though there wasn't any pain, I knew he'd gotten a good hit to my ear, and sure enough, it was peeing blood down the side of my neck. So I grabbed the first aid kit, washed off the blood, and tried to work out how you put a band-aid on the back of the bit of your ear that curves out. Thankfully, it stopped bleeding by itself pretty quick, and as I probed the wound with the finger, I realized it wasn't just a cut. My ear has a notch cut into it, like if you had a small hoop earring through the cartilage at the top, then ripped it out. I cleaned it, bandaged it, and went back to sleep, hoping that in the 3 hours before I needed to get up, he'd settle down. He did not. The morning brought the exact same furious energy, so I left him in the laundry until I was ready to head out for my first errand, and let him out before legging it as I left. I came back from the first errand, and he seemed chill at first, greeting me at the door and running ahead of me as I walked in as normal. But then he stopped, blocking me, and started the screaming and hissing again. I worked out a strat that worked at this point, getting my home defense cricket bat and holding it out in front of me like a blind person's cane while shuffling forward. He would slap the crap out of it 24 times and then retreat, so I could get around the house, kind of. I went out again for the rest of the day, going to appointments and the office for a few hours. Between preparing lesson plans, I consulted the Brains Trust and got some recommendations on how to help calm him down and get over what was now evidently an extremely traumatic event. At last, around 3 p.m., I went home via a specialist pet supply store. I bought a diffuser that puts out calming stuff called Fellaway, some calming spray, a catnip toy, and some calming snacks that apparently have something like the natural version of benzos for cars. I got home, navigated past the ball of furry orange screaming fury with the cricket bat, and to the kitchen. I unpacked the supplies, plugged in the diffuser, and set about spraying the common, comfy/resting spots with the calming spray. Leo followed me around the entire time, aptly communicating to me through screaming that he was still not impressed with everything. I had more paperwork to do, so I grabbed a calming snack and cricket bat and shuffled my way to the computer desk. I started doing the work, and eventually he slinked over and responded positively when I held my hand out carefully for a sniff and a head bump. I gave him pats, and I fed him from the tube of calming snack paste. At this point, I worked out the system. If I'm sitting at the couch or computer, then I'm safe apparently. If I stand up to walk around and he switches to fight or flight, then the cricket bat has to get involved. From the Brains Trust, this will apparently fix itself over a few days as trust is rebuilt. The final test was the second to last task for the day. I had an electrician scheduled to come and check a few things at around 4 p.m. The guy arrived, and as he knocked on the security screen, Leo bravely ran away without a murmur to hide behind the TV cabinet. I went out in front while the tradie was checking the electric panel and just warned him that when we went inside, we'd probably have an out-of-control cat screaming at me while I held out a cricket bat for him to try and fail to unalive before moving out of the way. But we didn't hear a peep from Leo the entire time the tradie was here, thus confirming that this fear aggression was solely aimed at me. The tradie did his thing, and we left soon after. Leo re-emerged, and we resumed the pattern of careful affection while I was sitting and working, switched with unbridled rage while I walked to the bathroom to take a leak. Semi-happy end. My last errand was to go collect my happy pills once I got a text shortly after 6 p.m. that they were ready. While I was there and waiting for my drugs that were not, in fact, ready, I consulted the Brains Trust again with the information about the apparent understanding my cat had. Sitting down me was a safe source of comfort against his trauma, and standing me was a terrible specter that caused the trauma. Someone suggested the obvious, make myself small and crawl or crab walk around the house. So when I got home, I tried this. I knelt down when I got in the door, and the initial greeting started turning sour. He instantly chilled. Tried shuffling forward on my knees, taking the occasional pause to offer a hand to sniff whenever he'd stop and do a bit of a warning meow. It worked. It hurt me by the gods I was strong. Knees like freak, but I could now get around the house without a feral domestic shorthair yowling at me. Alright, long story. Very, very long story. Took up almost half of our time today. And weirdly enough, the only thing that stood out to me about that is the fact that he, jokingly of course, he called his cat a misogynist. I thought that was pretty funny. Mama DMZ commented, I can imagine the cat's thought process the next day. Oh look, my awesome friend that loves me. Let's go snuggle, friendo. Stands up. Oh dear God, it's the monster from yesterday. I will freaking fight you. Poor OP. He'll forget after a while and chill out. Our next story is, today I freaked up by dyeing my bathtub blue and purple. I'm going to a concert soon and I want to dye my hair black for that. I used a semi-permanent dye from Arctic Fox and I assumed that it wouldn't dye the bathtub. I don't know. Because it's semi-permanent, it comes out when water touches it, and I'm on a swim team, so I can only wear it for one day, the day of the concert. So I decided to put it on yesterday and wash it out today to see how much it would wash out. But my brain wasn't working, and I washed my hair in the white bathtub, and now there's streaks of blue and purple in it. I'm currently very desperate to find ways to get rid of the dye, because if we were to retile or redo the bathtub, that would cost $3,000, and I'm not going to pay for that. If you have any advice, I will take it. Thank you. If it's an all-white bathtub, bleach is your friend and your only ally in the war to come. Just saying. Scary Alternative 11 replied, I've done the same thing with the same dye. Straight bleach is the answer, but also, it's only semi-permanent. It will fade on its own over time as you use and clean your tub. Our next story is, today I freaked up by trying to wash my hair on an empty stomach. Technically, it was yesterday that I freaked up. One Redditor asked me in a previous post how I was doing after a recent visit to A&E, ER for my American people. It was comical how I had to tell them crap got worse. By the way, I'm a 21-year-old female and live by myself in a woman's accommodation. So I'm on my period. Naturally, blood loss for 7 days equals more fatigue and less energy. I know that. I also know that not eating for the whole day because of nausea can exacerbate those feelings of exhaustion. Nevertheless, my dumb butt got a light bulb of inspiration to wash my hair while my laundry was being done in the washing machine. You know, 2 birds, 1 stone, and all of that. I wasn't feeling hungry, so I didn't think it'd be a red flag. Water temp was set to lukewarm, on the colder side. I was wary of steam because I know I'm prone to getting lightheaded from it. My hair is curly, so of course the detangling and everything else is a process that would have taken around an hour in the shower. About 20 minutes in, I get the telltale signs that I'm about to feel dizzy. I turn off the shower, grab my towel, and start dyeing myself with the intention to take a break and return later. Before I knew what was happening, my vision turns dark and I slam my front tooth and face straight into the wall in front of me. Hard. I try to stumble to my room. Towel is becoming dislodged. My hair is wet and dripping. My breathing is rapid. I fumble with the key, but the door's not opening. I realize I won't make it. I turn to my flatmate's door and knock for some assistance, but alas, my vision darkens again, and this time my legs completely give out, and I unceremoniously fall onto the dirty butt carpeted hallway with my wet hair and body. I'm out of it for a few minutes. Someone runs upstairs and sees me. I'm so sorry, girl. She calls the ambulance and helps me get to my room so I can get some clothes on me. The paramedics arrive and take my blood pressure, blood sugar levels, and connect me to an ECG. My blood sugar was fine, heart rate was a little fast, but due to shock maybe. What worried the paramedics was my BP that was constantly dropping every time. It went from 102 to 91. They thought it was worth being taken to the hospital. Anyway, A&E was heck. A lady who claimed she had sepsis was chasing me, and I don't know why. Too overstimulating. No one that I called was picking up. Talk about emergency contacts. My BP was still low at the hospital. They wanted to put a cannula in my arm and give me some fluids to get it back up, and check my red blood cell count. But by this time, I had been there for 5 hours, and I just couldn't anymore. Signed myself out, took an Uber home and ate, and went to sleep feeling sorry for myself. Moral of the story, do not get in the shower without having eaten the whole day, especially if you're on your period. Alright, I'm obviously not a woman that gets periods, but noted regardless. Yikes. Ladies that are listening, you must also note this, if you don't already know. Turing the cat commented, would another story of hair washing related injuries help? I was washing my hair about a month and a half ago and somehow pulled 2 intercostal muscles, the ones between your ribs. I honestly thought I was having a heart attack. It was so painful, and I still have back and chest pain now, just from washing my hair. And OP replied to this, the curse of cleanliness strikes again. I'm so sorry. Was it the excessive arm movements with the washing that caused it? Do you still have trouble now in the shower? I hope the pain goes away soon. Our next story is, today I freaked out by thinking I could fit through a bunk bed ladder. Okay, for context, I, 29-year-old male, am not a babysitter. Actually, not a fan of kids in general, but a family friend asked me to babysit their 7-year-old, and I need the money, so I figured why not. The mom gives me the freedom of the castle, so to speak. Just entertain her kid while she's away for a few hours. The kid's playroom/spare bedroom is in the basement. That's where we spent most of our time. I'm making up games, but they're mostly not connecting because the 7-year-old is unimaginative and not fun and mostly little crap. The only thing she likes is when I fake injure myself or chase her around. So we're doing one of those fake chase around things. She dives through the bunk bed ladder in the spare room. I go to follow her, but my shoulders immediately don't fit through the rungs. You're too big, she mocks. Don't ask me why, but it rubbed me the wrong way, so against science and reason, I force my shoulders through. It's painful, but eventually my top half is through. Smugly, I continue forward. Now, I'm a slim guy, but I have what the kids were calling a wagon, which didn't figure into my calculations. It's stuck on one side, and when I go to pull out, my shoulders don't fit. I'm stuck, fully stuck, panic, sweat, praying. The child is crying, laughing, poking me, taunting me for having the hubris to think I could follow her. This goes on for about 5 minutes before I have to call a friend. I give her the code to the house. About 20 minutes later, she arrives. After taking care of the kid, mocking me, and taking a plethora of pictures, we try to problem solve by taking the ladder of the bed. No good. We can't work it up or down, and no amount of Jergens helped either. Eventually, we cave and have to call the mom. We tell her we're considering calling the fire department. She zooms back home, busts out the saw, and cuts my adult-sized butt out. Needless to say, word has gotten back to my family, and I will forever be shamed. Undoubtedly, my last time babysitting. Yeah, there's no outrunning this one, you just gotta own it. The kid got you, and, it is what it is. It is what it is. Funny story to tell, though. At least on Reddit, not your friends. Our next story is, today I freaked out by dumping 2 quarts of grease down my sink. ETA, we have a grease can. I know not to dump grease and fat down the sink, and normally do not, but this time I very simply was not thinking. Regrettably, I am human, and hopefully this means I've made my mistake for the year already. It was supposed to be an easy dinner for gym night. Pulled pork in the crock pot so the kids could serve themselves while we were gone, and food would still be hot when we came home. I tossed the pork into the crock pot with some apple cider vinegar and onions and set it on high. At about 4 p.m., 8 hours later, I checked the crock pot. The cup of vinegar has turned into almost a full crock pot of liquid. Well, that won't do for pulled pork, so I put a strainer into the sink, dumped the pork, let the juices run down the drain, and plopped the pork back in to finish off with some barbecue sauce. Dinner for my family is settled and ready. Then the missus comes home. The conversation that follows is thus far my greatest shame in this relationship. She goes, Hey, when you drained the pork today, did you dump it into the trash or the sink? And me, buffering wheel spinning, freak! I go down to find the sink full of standing water. So I go to work, emptying the sink while boiling our biggest pasta of hot water. I have the sink mostly empty, dump a bunch of Dawn down it, followed by the boiling water, and nada. Now I have a sink full of hot, soapy water. So I get the auger. Maybe it just needs some help. Nothing. Can't even reach it. So tomorrow we fetch a plunger and I try once more before relenting and admitting to a stranger I'm an absolute moron. At least the wife still loves me. Update. I fixed it. Left Dawn dish soap in it overnight, which cleared the standing water, and some grease cleaner and hot, boiling this time. Water seems to have solved it entirely, or moved it deeper into the plumbing. Who knows? At least he came up with seemingly a temporary solution here. This could have been so much worse, but definitely might want to get it looked at just to be safe. A party in my pants replied, "This is one of those scenarios where I wouldn't even get mad. Everyone realizes a mistake was made. Just do yourself a favor and call someone not only to snake your drain, but maybe even a decent idea to get your line snake from your basement out to the sewer." And OP replied to this, "Luckily, the last time we called a plumber, they offered us a package of 1 year of discounts on snaking and clog clearing. That time, the eldest washed a math workbook with her laundry, so we figured it would be reasonable to pay that bit extra. I didn't figure it would be my fault. We needed it next." Our next story is, "Today I freaked up by crapping my pants. On a date, meeting my girlfriend of 8 months' parents for the first time. Right after I finished dinner, I went to the bathroom to wash my hands. While I was there, I felt a fart coming and decided to let it rip. It was not a fart. Spent the next 20 minutes attempting to wash the stain off my underwear while giving my girlfriend a half-assed excuse on how bad I had to leave. Drove home commando with my crap-filled underwear in the trunk while I was bawling my eyes out. 3 days have passed, and her family are still upset at me for leaving on such short notice. I still don't know if I should come clean or double down on my excuse and never speak on it again. I don't know who else to tell this to, who wouldn't clown me forever for it, so now I'm posting it here. Freak me. Just see you had a bodily emergency. No need to go into specific detail, but I think that alone people will get the hint. But if they're upset with you, you gotta say something. You can't just not own up to it. Stay Kogi 666 replied, "Honestly, only crap myself once in my life so far. Use the underwear to wipe and threw them away and just freeballed like nothing happened. I'm assuming you either valued your crappy undies too much to part with them, or your pants weren't freeball and public material. Also, you don't have to tell the full truth. Just tell them you got super sick and didn't want to embarrass yourself, so you snuck out. They can draw their own conclusions on what kind of sick that was. Edit. It was the parents' house, it seems. Still, though, bin it, bag it. Trash was full, just taking this out. Street bin, back to dinner, but hindsight is 2020. Just say you were sick and recover if you can, OP. Our next story is, "Today I freaked up by pranking my nephew. I had my brother's family over for lunch today. I just picked up a couple of pizzas. Thinking it'd be funny, I sprinkled some grains of cooked white rice on one. Then I acted all concerned to my nephew, 8, I think, and asked him, 'Do these look like maggots to you?' He took one glance and promptly blew chunks all over the floor. To make matters worse, their dog then started licking the barf and walked in it, so it got spread all around. His parents were not at all pleased with me. I obviously felt bad and didn't expect him to have such an extreme reaction. He later claimed he saw the rice moving. All he ate was some applesauce while the rest of us had pizza. You know, you make a disgusting prank like this, you gotta be willing to roll with the consequences. At least all he did was puke. He probably feels a lot better, and applesauce sounds like an upgrade over, in his mind at least, maggot-infested pizza." Evie Lover 22 replied, "In all fairness, I wouldn't have expected someone to immediately puke either, so I'll give you some grace. You still have to find a good way to make it up to him, and his family, for having to deal with the puke, though." Our next story is, "Today I freaked out by not talking to a sweet girl on my train. This is the second time something like this happened. Maybe some of you remember an earlier post of mine from several weeks ago. I met a girl there but couldn't get a word out until she talked to me, and I promptly had to leave the train at my destination. Yeah, I never saw that girl again, but it is what it is. I can only learn from my mistakes of not shooting my shot when time is limited. But today I managed to freak up again. Freak me, I'm such a dumb guy. What happened? I, male, 25, sat in my seat, not remotely thinking any girl would be willing to flirt with me. On a seat facing the opposite direction than mine, so that we were more or less forced to look at each other, my eye suddenly lays on a pretty girl that was very much my type. Then she looks up, straight in my face, and smiles wide, then looks down. I didn't think much, but then she looked at me again, smiling. She also put her phone down, looking out of the window, as if she was waiting for me. I don't think this was just polite smiling. She really looked at me, or more precise, we looked each other into the eyes, and only then smiled before looking away suddenly. I smiled at her too, of course. Sometimes she was watching me with the side eye. How do I know? I did the same because I found her rather interesting. This went on for maybe 15 minutes. Well, I'm a little softy, and the last thing I want to do is be seen as a creep. It's not that I couldn't stand rejection. Of course, this wouldn't be my desired outcome. But I fear to misread signs and have a girl feel uncomfortable. So I thought, what should I do? Waited several minutes. Then I said to myself, okay, if our eyes meet once again and she smiles, you talk to her. It didn't happen. Actually, she seemed to be upset from something, slightly shaking her head. I started to feel like maybe didn't ever flirt with me and started to be annoyed by me. Second thoughts. Grow some balls. Even if this is a misunderstanding, at least you look like an insufferable loser or romantic guy when talking to her instead of a kind of stalker just looking at her. That went through my mind. The train was having its next destination, so I decided to wait out the people entering the train would have taken a seat. I would have needed to stand exactly in the walking space between seats to speak to her. I was shaking, preparing myself mentally to stand up as soon as the train departed again. Welp, she had to leave the train. Didn't waste any further look at me, and from my perspective, she looked disappointed in me. Maybe that's why she got upset. About me, herself, or whatever. You, my friend, are overthinking it. Maybe you should have talked to her, maybe not, but to think that her whole day was ruined because you didn't come up to her on the train, that's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think you're good, dude. Don't worry about it. What is this chest commented? This just feels like you're thinking too much of it. Relax a little, dude. There are so many other possibilities, including that she didn't even think much of your eye contact. You're too much in your head. Life will get you where you need to be with relationships. It doesn't seem like you're ready to be there yet. Alright everybody, that is all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and comment down below, and if you want to check out any of our other videos, click the video on the right. I got nothing else for you. Get out of here. Have a great day. I will see you all next time.